Hello there, this is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates. And I have a very difficult topic to discuss today, one that I've been wrestling with mightily. It's the longest title I've ever had for a video by far. So the topic today is gaining closure with your narcissistic abuser. But it goes on. Gaining closure with your narcissistic abuser with self-respect, healthy boundaries, detachment, personal insight, and accountability by legally equaling their level of force. You know, recovery from narcissistic abuse is not a sprint up a mountain. You're going to have ups and downs. And I've been struggling a bit with a bit of a setback. Yesterday morning, my daughter ran into the narcissist who abused me so viciously. And of course, my daughter is young and she doesn't understand narcissistic abuse, and they had a nice little chat. This woman was coming from the hairstylist that I used to write checks for $170 every 6 weeks. And the fact that she's there means there's another man writing checks. And it just creeped me out to hear that this person approached my daughter and that they had a nice little chat. So the thing that I'm struggling with, and a lot of my videos I sort of figure things out and I come at you with, a good deal of confidence and joy and insight. And this is more, I'm wrestling with something. I spent all last evening watching YouTube videos. I watched the Spartan Coach. I watched a channel, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, it's Paul Elam and Dr. T. And they work specifically with men. I think it's called Going Mental. But they just did a really long video on rebuilding your self-respect. And I know all the things that you need to do with detachment and closure, but it's easy to get sucked back in when there's a contact with somebody close to you. So the reason I'm sharing this isn't because I have all kinds of brilliant insight. The reason I'm sharing it is I'm struggling, and I want to begin a dialogue with other struggling people. I do think I have some concepts that will be helpful for you. The dilemma, of course, is if you've been really damaged ruthlessly by a narcissist and they just trot along their merry way, apparently happy, apparently having gone through, not even 1% of the trauma and damage that you went through, and they stole money from you, they by their misrepresenting of themselves, they cheated, they lied, they traumatized you, and they just trot off with no consequences, no accountability whatsoever. And, we're supposed to be in our Dharma, forgiving, recovery selves, and just forgive them and just, merrily skip down the street. But I got to tell you, as you guys know, there's part of me that, wants some accountability for this individual and for the sick individual that she was doing most of her cheating with. So that's the struggle, is how to be free, how to be detached, how to move on with your life, how to have joy, but to not walk away as a codependent, as a weak, powerless, person who had no say, who had no voice in the matter. And that's where I'm struggling. And please don't send me a lot of videos giving me advice. I don't want your advice at this point. If you're somebody who's struggling with this and you want a dialogue about what has worked for you, then that's cool. But any advice you've given me, I've heard, and I'm here to dialogue with fellow strugglers of how do you find that sweet spot where you've gained your closure, you've maintained your dignity and your self-respect, you've set healthy boundaries, you are emotionally detached, you are focusing on your own personal insight. But I watched the Spartan Life Coach, and he has a video about gaining revenge, if you will, against the narcissist. And I didn't find it super helpful. It seemed a little hard to follow, but he did come up with this concept of the level of force. It's like these people have brought a level of force and a level of violence psychologically towards us. And if you just walk away without any strength or any accountability after having been hit with that level of force, it just doesn't seem healthy. It doesn't seem equitable. So I'm struggling with this, and I just want to dialogue about it. I don't know if there's any Breaking Bad fans out there. I know Breaking Bad isn't on anymore, but it's on Netflix, and I'm a huge fan. And from time to time, I crank up my Netflix and revisit my Breaking Bad boys. So those of you who don't watch Breaking Bad, I encourage you to watch it. Yeah, it's about a meth dealer, but it's not really about a meth dealer. It's about a middle-aged man who was codependent and who was dominated by his wife, dominated by his health, dominated by money. And he went through this titanic struggle to be a strong man. He overshot and became a psychopath. But it's interesting material. I think it's the best show in the history of television myself, by far. But at some point, the bad guy, one of the bad guys, Gus Fring, had been blown up. And because he had been chummy with the local DEA boss, that guy was getting fired. And there was a scene with Hank, Walter White's brother-in-law, and Steve Gomez and this former DEA boss, and they were sort of sitting there having a drink just before this guy had to clear out. And he said of Gus Fring, he was right there in front of me. He was right under my nose, and he was a different person altogether, a different person completely than who I thought he was. And that's the case with these cluster B people. It isn't a breakup. It's they hid their real selves, and they toyed with you, and they enjoyed the hurtfulness and the destruction, and they misrepresented themselves all along. Another little picture of narcissistic abuse was when Hank finally pieced together out of the blue that Walter his brother-in-law was in fact the methamphetamine drug cook and drug czar Heisenberg. And the character who plays Hank did a wonderful job of showing his shock, his betrayal. He had a panic attack. He wrecked his car. He went into rage. He was obsessed with figuring it out. And again, it's a shock that this nice person in front of you has been pretending as long as you've known them, and really they were a monster. They were a vicious monster that it just shocks your entire system to find out that a person you had close to you that you thought was a good person who loved you was really just the worst kind of monster. So getting closure with your narcissistic abuser, I'm going to go through and talk about self-respect and boundaries and detachment and personal insight and accountability. And some of the things I'm going to say towards the end are a little bit raw, a little bit controversial. I know some of you folks who've forgiven and moved on and you're real happy will hear this and go, Mark has some work to do. And I do. But hey, this is where most of us live. And what you don't want to do is get stuck and stay stuck for years. I've been a little stuck for about a week or two, probably less than 2 weeks, and I'm getting unstuck. I'm not going to stay stuck in bitterness and victim mentality, but it's tempting. So anyway, discussing self-respect, again, I recommend this Paul Elam and Dr. T. If you'll just Google them, they just sort of go back and forth, and they work with codependent men. And their message is man up. It's very similar. It reminded me of the very wonderful book, No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. This was like a video presentation, basically, of those concepts. And I was really surprised to hear myself in these comments about male codependency, because I've always thought of myself as a very strong man. But the truth is, these narcissists draw you in, and then they systematically go to work on your self-esteem and your self-respect. And if you grew up with a critical parent, and with males a lot of time it's a manipulative, entitled, overly needy, raging, critical mother, and that's what I had. So the thing, and I've said this on my videos before, is cluster B people they're really clowns. It's amazing how a clown can hurt us so much, because they're infantile children, and they're so self-centered that they can't really see what is going on in the world, but they are cunning, and they do have the advantage of surprise, but none of them are worthy of you. If you are a recovering person from narcissistic abuse syndrome, and you're working hard at clearing up the PTSD symptoms in your body, and you're developing joy, and you're setting healthy boundaries, and you're crying your tears, then part of the restoration is developing high self-respect. This Paul Elam said he was dating a woman, and they were about ready to seal the deal romantically. And she said, by the way, I always have to have the last word. And he said, you know what? That's not going to work for me. And he broke up with her just then and there, because he knew this woman was announcing, I'll be romantic with you, but everything's going to need to be my way. And he said, no, ain't going to do it. So we only picked these people because we needed to heal and do some work on our family of origin stuff. It's really not about them. So the second thing that can help you gain closure is setting healthy boundaries, which of course means no contact. As I watched 10 different video presentations on closure from Sam Vacton to, I saw one of the people in our office come up, Brenda Hall. I saw one by Sarita Nightshade. There was lots of them come up. But the message is the very best revenge that you can get on this person is to go be happy. Sasha Stone, she had one with wearing a funny hat, and she was just like, you know, I'm happy. I can wear this funny hat and have joy. And so stay focused on you and find something or some things that give you joy and invest yourself in them. And you will begin to have really positive momentum and get joy. And when they down the road find out, hey, this person has joy, they've moved on to a healthy relationship, they're financially blessed, they have a skip in their step, they look good, they're taking good care of themselves, then they'll be kicking themselves for letting you escape their clutches. The third area is a sort of a two-parter, being emotionally detached and developing and focusing on your own personal insight. So this work needs to remain focused on your own choices, your own self. The only thing that made me a good candidate for such an awful, monstrous, manipulative individual is, you know, my mommy issues from childhood. It's all about your family of origin. And the thing about victim mentality, it's so insidious. I am Mr. There are no victims. I think you guys know that, but I've sort of been thinking like a victim, you know, for the past week or so. And when you're doing your own work and you're doing things that give you joy, you're sort of enveloped in peace. And even if something goes on in the system, in the force, if you find out that there's been contact in your network with this toxic individual, you can maintain your peace. Okay, so now comes the controversial area, and that is accountability by always legally equaling their level of force. A great level of aggression and violence emotionally has been leveled at you with these just vicious individuals. And the Spartan life coach says the prevailing wisdom is forgive, forget, move on, be happy. And his approach seemed to be do all those things, yes, but if you get a chance to psychologically punch them in the face and expose their monstrous behavior and be really formidable, and you can do it legally and non-reactively, then do it. Match their level of force. So I was struggling with, you know, it doesn't seem like there has been accountability, but a good friend of mine reminded me that during this past 15 months, especially early on, I actually was quite a warrior, and I did exact some accountability. And so I wanted to share some things that I did. Don't just get rolled over and bullied by these monsters. Don't do anything illegal or reactive, but if you get a chance to punch them in their face, psychologically do it. You'll feel good about it later. When this thing blew up, I had given a $2,500 living room suit to her, and when she was in the treatment center, I closed down the apartment I had been providing for her, and I got my furniture back, and it is in my gym in my basement. And every time I see it, I have mixed thoughts. The mixed thoughts are, wow, this is cool that I have this awesome furniture down in my basement. And then there's also a creepy, yeah, I'm pretty sure she had sex on this couch with her various men. But I still count it as a tremendous victory that something that was given in codependency and manipulation and naivety was recaptured, something that was mine. I also, with the help of another friend, we grilled this psychopath pretty aggressively, and that's how we found out the level of her insanity. My car was returned to me. This woman went out and she purchased a sign and hung it on the wall in the living room. And I think she did it just to have fun. And it said family rules. And the first rule was always tell the truth. And one of the rules was always be loyal. And she hung that there, and I think she got a chuckle out of it. And I destroyed her sign. I had given her a bike, and my daughter has had it and no longer wants. I'm going to go pick it up today. It's going to be my bike. I took back a couple of televisions that I gave her because these things were given under the understanding that she was a good person and told the truth and wasn't a monster. So the other thing that I did was I threw away things that were triggers. And these were things that I had purchased for the most part, and things that gave me a sense of power to dispose of. And it's a little controversial to throw something away that technically belongs to somebody else, but these were items that were just bathed in, again, that force against you. And so, again, I want to encourage you to never do something illegal, and I didn't, but sometimes as you're dealing with a world-class mind-fucking, evil, hurtful individual, if you protect yourself and stand your ground and punch them in the face psychologically, you might scooch up something that looks a little sketchy. And those of you who know me know that I have a good, sweet heart, and I'm not an aggressive person. It's all about having a voice. It's all about not being powerless. This woman was aided and abetted. And another thing I did was I called out this treatment center, the Bridge to Recovery. And I'm calling them out now as unethical and rescuing and incompetent help who aided and embedded a monster. And this woman had a way of finding family, friends, and authorities who would aid and abet her so that she could trot off and not have any accountability. So one of the things I did was, this monstrous sex addict that she was involved with had a girlfriend. I called the girlfriend, and then she immediately ditched him. So there was some pain involved there. There was acting out in their place of employment, and I contacted their place of employment. This was like a year ago. So don't stalk. Don't use a lot of energy on this. Don't use money or time. Don't do anything illegal. But if the opportunity presents itself to hold these individuals accountable, don't shrink from it. Psychologically punch them in the face. Don't be afraid. It will do your soul good. Part of what has helped me in my recovery process is just telling my story. I don't make these videos to have any statements about that individual. I do it because it's therapeutic for me, and very closely after that, it is helpful to you. And it also has been an amazing marketing tool for my services and for my practice. So that's the cake, but a little icing on the cake sometimes is being able to have a voice and a venue to talk about the emotional violence that was done by people like this, that there are people out there. About, a little over a year ago, I had an intervention meeting, and this woman wrote down all the horrific things that she did. I invited 20 friends and family, and we sat around and she read those in front of 20 friends and family, horrific things. And I didn't do it to shame her at all. Some things are so horrible, you have to hear them said out loud, and you just want people to know this is what happened. And that's where I was at a year ago, and I'm so glad I did that. Those 20-something people knew exactly what kind of monster this person was, and she was exposed. Frankly, I also, at that time, sent out some emails with that confession to certain key people in her life, not to be vindictive, not to be mean. There's just this powerless part of you that just wants to say, this really happened. There are people out here that are just this monstrous, and you guys thought that this person was a good person, slightly crazy, slightly mean. No, she in fact is monstrous and far beyond slightly crazy and neurotic. She is an abuser and a narcissist and a borderline. So this is a struggle. There's a very tight line to walk. You want to keep the focus on yourself. You want to have gratitude for the work you've been able to do and the healing you've been able to do in healing your family of origin issues. You want to have joy doing things that make you happy. You want to move on with your life. But you want to be a formidable individual, and you don't want to get bruised and destroyed by clowns. And there's a non-bitter place of strength and assertiveness and being a formidable individual. And when you have strength, eventually people know, without reactivity and without anything illegal, they'll know that, they fucked with the wrong person. And I think after some of these actions that I took, she left this relationship with a limp psychologically, and I don't think she's used to strip mining somebody and leaving with a limp, but she certainly left with a limp with me, and I just needed to be reminded of that. So again, this is a dialogue. I'm not presenting I'm a YouTube guru and a therapist and I have all my stuff together. Gaining healthy, robust, effective closure with, it's like somebody raped you and they got off on a technicality and they're strolling across town like, you know, it's no big deal, and you're healing your wounds of the rape, and everybody wants you to just put a smile on your face and act like you weren't raped. And you do need to put a smile on your face, and you do need to look forward, but with self-respect, healthy boundaries, detachment, personal insight. If you have legal means to offer these individuals some accountability by equaling the level of force that they use to rape you, then that's something that they've earned for themselves. And I don't know what that looks like in your situation. I just know in my situation, I feel empowered. I feel strong. I feel free, and I'm not as broken as I once was, and I'm not quite fully there with the closure that I'm developing. I don't need anything from this individual. I don't want to speak with them or have contact with them. I'm just saying it's okay to be strong. It's okay to be formidable. It's okay to use a level of force against monsters. These monsters aren't godlike. They're not the devil incarnate that can beat you because they have so much power and they're so smart. They're clowns. And don't be intimidated by actually weak, scared people who are clowns, who are just playing a role. So I'd be interested in your feedback. Like I said, I'm piecing this together. My main focus is on having joy, moving forward, doing things that I enjoy, developing a new relationship, and not getting caught up in or snared in the past. But you got to keep on grieving, and you got to keep on working through your past. And many of us were raped pretty viciously, and part of our healing is gaining back voice, gaining back power, gaining back integrity, and not being bullied by anything or anybody as we move forward in our future. So, okay, folks, that's what I had for you for today. Please join our YouTube channel. We're sneaking up on 13,000 people who've subscribed to Family Tree Counseling on YouTube. Also, I have 5 really good books that can help you on abandonment, on shame, on affair recovery, on marriage counseling, and on personal recovery at familytreecounseling.com. It's a beautiful Sunday. I think I'm going to go pull some weeds. Have a good day. God bless.